What's up, Riftbound fans? Squigie here, and today we're diving into the Radiant Dawn. This is the beginner's guide to Leona, a deck built around stunning your opponent's units, buffing your friendly units, and creating a small army to conquer battlefields. I'm going to break down the champions, units, seals, and spells, along with Riftbound's unique style, Sideboard, along with some tips and tricks to get an edge in both competitive and casual play. Let's start with the legend herself, Leona. Her ability reads, when you stun one or more units, buff a friendly unit. If it doesn't have a buff, it gets a +1 might buff. This is how you can make even the smallest units into real threats. Buffing is unique to Riftbound. Once a unit is buffed, that +1 might last for the rest of the game. You can debuff it, but in doing so, you will revert the value of their might back to their base value. Her champion unit, Leona Determine, comes with shield, +1 might when defending, and her attack trigger is what makes her very scary. When she attacks, stun an enemy unit here. Stun means the enemy unit doesn't deal combat damage this turn. It's a temporary shutdown that lets you control combat and open the way for your forces. Timing your stuns is critical. Stunning early denies your opponent pressure, but holding your stun for the biggest attacker can completely flip a battlefield in your favor. Her signature spell, Zenith Blade, is an action spell. Stun an enemy unit at a battlefield, then you may move a friendly unit to that enemy's battlefield. This is huge. Not only are you disabling a threat, but you're also repositioning your army to pressure exactly where you need it most. Here's a quick competitive tip. Zenith Blade plus Solaire Chief, a card we will talk about later, is one of the best combos this deck has to offer. I will explain later, but basically you stun with Zenith Blade, move Chief in, and since the enemy is stunned, Chief kills it outright. Let's move on to the battlefields. This deck uses 3 strong battlefields. The first battlefield is called Targon's Peak. Conquer here and ready 2 runes. Incredible for chaining spells, as well as recouping your runes to use on your opponent's turn. Next up we have Aspirant's Climb. Increase the points needed to win by 1, giving you more time to leverage stuns and build your army. The last battlefield is Star-Tipped Peak. When you hold here, you may channel 1 rune Exhausted, fueling your resource engine as well as getting ahead later in the game to play bigger bodies. Together, these battlefields slow your opponent's clock while keeping your spells flowing. Quick tip: prioritize Targon's Peak early if you can. Having runes open on both turns makes it much harder for your opponent to play around your reaction spells. Let's move on to the champion units. We've already covered Leona herself, but let's talk about her support cast. Let's start with Sona. While she's at a battlefield, you ready 4 friendly runes at the end of your turn. Combined with Targon's Peak, the battlefield we talked about earlier, you can go into your opponent's turn with 6 runes ready. That means you always have the resources to react to your opponent, as well as playing quick spells. Sona can bait opponents into overcommitting. They'll think you're tapped out, but at the end of your turn, you refresh and suddenly have full control with counters and stuns. The next unit we have is Shen, a reaction speed defender with shield 2 and tank, forcing opponents to deal with him first, perfect for protecting your board. He can also be played during your opponent's turn, so having those 4 runes ready from Sona can actually help you by playing Shen on a battlefield you control to reinforce it. Leona's army is built on value and utility. Let's look at the units. First up, we have Trifarian Glory Seeker. It's got Legion, plus a self buff when played. Even small units become dangerous once buffed. Next up, we have Clockwork Keeper. Pay 1 rune as an additional recycle cost, and you draw 1 card. keeping your hand alive and milling through your deck. Next up we have Soaring Scout. When it dies, you channel 1 rune Exhausted. Even in death, it fuels you plays and lets you get more runes for next turn to play bigger bodies. And finally, we have Solaire Chief. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, it is a powerhouse. When you play it, choose an enemy unit. If it's stunned, kill it. If it's not, stun it. Either way, you're winning the exchange. Don't underestimate buffing with this deck. A Trifarian Glory Seeker with a buff quickly becomes a battlefield anchor that forces your opponent to react. Now, let's move on to the seals and gears. Your seals provide constant utility. First up, we have Seal of Unity. This lets you use it as a recycle cost, so you don't have to waste your runes. It focuses on reaction speed rune generation, which can't be disrupted. Next up, we have Forge the Future. Plays a recruit token at your base when played, then, when it dies, lets you recycle up to 4 cards in trash. Notice the key phrasing here on the second part of this card. Recycle up to 4 cards from trashes. That means you can target your opponent's trash. If they're playing a deck that lets them pull cards from trash and you don't want them to grab them later in the game, you can force them to recycle those cards to the bottom of their deck so they won't be a bother for you later on. The final gear we have is Spirit's Refuge. Buffs a unit and gives all buffed units deflect if they don't already have it. That means opponents have to pay to target your key units with spells or abilities. Spirit's Refuge is one of your best late game stabilizers. Once your board is full of buffed units, it makes them nearly untouchable by targeted removal due to the fact that the opponent must recycle 1 rune to target them. Now, the heart of this deck, the spells. Leona thrives on reaction plays, counters, and tempo swings. Let's talk about the first spell, Defy. Counter a low cost spell, perfect for stopping early removal. Next up, we have Charm. Moves an enemy unit. You can reposition threats to bad battlefields or completely out of combat by moving them back to their base. Next up, we have Wind Wall. You hard counter any spell your opponent plays, keeping your army safe. We also have Hidden Blade. Can be hidden early by recycling 1 rune, then later cast for a free kill on a unit at a battlefield. However, the drawback is the controller draws 2, but if the threat is removed, that lets you clean up the battlefield and secure it. The next spell we have is Discipline. Gives +2 might for a turn and draws a card. Buffs and card advantage in 1. Meditation. Exhaust a friendly unit as an extra cost to draw 2. Otherwise, draw 1. Either way, it's efficient card flow and lets you see the cards you need to see. Finally, we have Call to Glory. Lets you spend a buff as an extra cost to ignore the spell's rune cost, then it gives a unit +3 might for the turn. This spell suite makes Leona a control deck at heart. Learn when to hold your counters. Sometimes the threat of Windwall is more powerful than using it too early. Next, we'll move on to Riftbound's unique style, the Sideboard. For sideboarding, we have some strong tech. Let's take a look. The first card we have is Set, a tanky bruiser who scales with the number of buffed units at his battlefield. Great versus grindy decks. Next up we have Solari Shrine. Whenever you kill a stunned enemy unit, you can draw a card. However, you must exhaust this card to draw. Perfect synergy with Leona's kit. Next up we have Noxian Drummer. Brings a recruit token every time she moves to a battlefield, helping you swarm battlefields and growing Leona's army. Next up we have Rune Prison. It's an action, another stun effect at action speeds. And finally, we've got Symbol of the Solari. If combat ends in a tie while you're attacking, recall all units to your base instead. It's a stall breaker that punishes defensive players. Set is your win condition in slower games. Once your board is buffed, he becomes unstoppable if your opponent can't clear him immediately. And here we have the full list on the screen. Leona is the perfect entry point for Riftbound players. She's straightforward, but with a lot of depth. Stun locks your opponent out of combat, buffs your smallest recruits at battlefields and champions, and her seals and spells give you incredible flexibility. We hope you enjoyed our beginner's guide to Leona, the Radiant Dawn. Let us know in the comments what deck you want to see next. If you like what you saw, make sure to like and subscribe to Haven for all things TCG related. I'm Squeegee, and I'm signing off.